They fined me for hunting, so I bought the entire forest behind them and banned the whole neighborhood. No joke. What started as a peaceful weekend tradition turned into a full-blown war with the HOA. They thought a few warning letters and made-up rules would scare me off. They really thought they had power. They didn't know who they were dealing with. I wasn't hunting in anyone's backyard. I followed every rule, had all the permits, and kept far away from any houses. Still, they made it personal. They sent letters. They slapped me with fines. They tried to shame me in front of the whole community like I was breaking some sacred law. Spoiler, I wasn't, so I did something they never expected. While they were busy watching my driveway, I made calls. I signed papers. I bought the land. Not just a piece of it. All of it. Thousands of acres. Now they can't step 1 foot into those woods without breaking the law. No more hikes, no more dog walks, no more pretending they run the place. They thought they could push me around. They picked the wrong guy. When I first bought the house, it felt like a dream. It sat right on the edge of a huge forest. Quiet, calm, nothing but trees behind me for miles. That's what I wanted. I didn't care much for golf courses or backyard BBQs with nosy neighbors. I wanted space. I wanted nature. The forest was everything I was looking for. I hunted, but I wasn't careless. I followed every law, got the right tags, stayed deep in the woods, far from any houses. I wasn't dragging deer across front lawns or firing shots near kids. I kept to myself, kept it clean, kept it legal. It wasn't just a hobby to me. Being out there gave me peace. It was how I reset after a long week. The neighborhood seemed fine at first. Quiet people, the kind who wave but don't ask too many questions. The HOA barely said a word, mostly sent emails about trash bins and lawn heights. Nobody seemed to care what I was doing way out in the trees. For a while, it felt like I'd found the perfect spot. But that peace? It didn't last. Things started going sideways when Brenda became the new HOA president. Before that, the HOA was just background noise, emails about trash day and complaints about Christmas lights staying up too long. But Brenda? She came in swinging like she'd just been crowned queen of the cul-de-sac. You know the type. Wears a visor indoors, drives a golf cart like it's a police cruiser, and treats the HOA rulebook like the 10 Commandments. Total retired hall monitor energy. It didn't take long for her to notice me. One day I'm unloading my hunting gear, everything properly stored, deer meat packed in coolers, rifle cased, and here she comes, golf cart screeching to a stop at the edge of my driveway. Clipboard in hand. The look on her face said I'd committed some kind of crime. She doesn't even say hi. Just points at the coolers and asks, "What is all this?" I tell her I've been out hunting. Completely legal, all permits in order, and far away from the houses. Her face tightens like I just said I was storing explosives. She flips a page on her clipboard and starts quoting some made-up bylaw about disturbing the peace and endangering the community. Then, without even listening, she says this is my official warning. I hadn't broken a single rule. But it didn't matter. Brenda had decided she didn't like hunting, and that meant she didn't like me. About a week after Brenda's little driveway ambush, I got my first certified letter from the HOA. That's right, certified. Like I was being sued or drafted or something serious. I open it up, and there it is. A fine for activities disturbing the peace and disrupting the community aesthetic. Translation? They didn't like that I brought back a legally harvested deer and carried it through my own garage. That was just the beginning. More letters followed. One fined me for improper disposal of biological waste. I guess that meant the meat in my coolers. Another mentioned excessive noise during off hours, which made me laugh since I hunt alone, quietly, and most mornings you could hear birds louder than anything I was doing. The rules they quoted? So vague you could twist them to mean just about anything. I think one of them said I was violating the community atmosphere. Whatever that means. So I fought back with facts. I printed out my hunting license, deer tags, a map showing how far into the forest I was, even a highlighted section of the HOA rules that clearly said their authority stopped at the property line. I mailed it all back, with a calm letter explaining how nothing I did broke any real rule. They didn't care. Another fine showed up the next week. Then another. It wasn't about rules anymore. This was personal. Brenda didn't like hunting, didn't like me doing it, and now she was using the HOA as her own little courtroom. And no matter how right I was, she was going to keep swinging until she made me stop. Or thought she did. After the third or fourth fine, it hit me. This wasn't just about my driveway or some cooler full of meat. Brenda and her little HOA squad actually thought they had some say over the forest. Like their made-up rules stretched past the backyard fences and into land they didn't even own. That's when I got curious. If they didn't own the woods, then who did? I started digging. Turns out the forest behind my house was owned by an old timber trust. Some company from out of state that probably hadn't set foot on the land in years. It wasn't protected parkland or HOA property. It was just sitting there, huge and quiet, managed by some guy who was likely tired of the paperwork. And that's when the idea hit me. Hard. What if I didn't just fight the HOA? What if I ended the fight completely? What if I bought the entire forest? It sounded crazy at first. But the more I thought about it, the more perfect it seemed. They were trying to control land they didn't own. I could fix that. I could own it. All of it. That's when everything changed. They thought I was cornered. They thought they were wearing me down with fines and letters. Truth was, I was just getting started. Once the idea settled in my head, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Buying the forest sounded wild, but it also felt right. I started by digging into county records, who actually owned the land, how much they paid in taxes, and if anyone had tried to buy it before. It took a few late nights, but I found out the forest was part of a big timber trust. They'd held on to it for decades. The taxes alone were steep, and from what I could tell, they hadn't logged the land in years. It looked like they were just holding on to it because they didn't want to deal with the headache of selling. That's when I realized I might actually have a shot. The trust was run by an older guy based in another state. Managing thousands of acres from that far away couldn't have been easy. I figured if I came to him with the right offer and a solid reason, he might listen. I reached out to my old friend Dave, someone I trusted and who'd done well for himself. We used to hunt together, and he hated HOA drama just as much as I did. I told him the story, every part of it, and when I floated the idea of buying the forest, he didn't laugh. He leaned in. We set up an LLC to keep everything under wraps. No leaks, no rumors. We wanted this to be airtight before Brenda even had a clue. While she was busy writing up fines, we were building a plan to own everything behind her backyard. After months of planning, meetings, paperwork, and more stress than I care to admit, it was done. Signed, sealed, wired, the entire forest was now mine. Thousands of acres. The same woods they tried to control through threats and letters. I owned every inch of it. It was real, and I almost couldn't believe it. But the deed was in my hands, and their power trip had officially crashed into a wall they never saw coming. That weekend, I got to work. With help from a few friends, we put up signs. Big, bold metal signs that couldn't be missed. Private property. No trespassing. But I didn't stop there. At the bottom of every sign near the trails leading in from the neighborhood, I added one very special line. Access forbidden to all residents, guests, and members of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association. No room for confusion. No more walking their dogs through my land like it was a public park. No more pretending their clipboard gave them power over places they didn't own. I stepped back, looked at those signs shining at the edge of their world, and smiled. The message was loud and clear. They wanted control. Now they had none. Monday morning, right on schedule, Brenda rolled up in her golf cart for one of her usual patrols, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on like she was guarding national secrets. She turned onto the trail behind the neighborhood and froze. There it was, one of the new signs, bold as ever, staring her down. Her eyes squinted, and she stepped closer, reading the bottom line out loud. You could almost hear the gears grinding in her head. Then she spun around and spotted me standing by my fence, sipping coffee. She stormed across the grass like it was a battlefield, stomped right up to the edge of my property, and shouted, "What is the meaning of this?" I didn't even flinch. "I bought the forest, Brenda," I said. "It's mine now, and you're banned." Her mouth opened, then shut. Nothing came out. She looked like someone had unplugged her brain. She grabbed her clipboard like it could save her and spun around, nearly tripping as she hurried back to her cart. Didn't say another word. Just drove off, fast, almost clipping a lawn gnome on her way out. And just like that, the queen of the HOA realized the woods weren't hers to boss around anymore. Once the signs were up, I knew that wasn't enough. Some people would test it, so I made sure they couldn't claim they didn't see the sign or didn't know. I installed trail cameras, high-quality ones that sent alerts to my phone the second someone stepped past the line. Then I had my lawyer send an official letter to the HOA with copies of the deed and survey map. It spelled everything out, clear as day. No access, no exceptions. And yes, that included them. Of course, a few people still tried. Dog walkers, bored teenagers, the usual. I let the first couple off with a warning. But when Gary, the same guy who backed Brenda, strolled past the sign like it wasn't there, I confronted him with the footage. He backed off quick. Then came the protest walk. Brenda and a small group tried to make some kind of scene, walking past the signs like they were above the rules. I called the sheriff's office. A deputy showed up, calm and professional, and shut it down. Fast. No yelling, no drama, just facts. They were trespassing, and it was over. Brenda's face, red as a tomato. She had to walk back, surrounded by the same people she dragged into this mess. Not a word from her, not after that. Word got around fast after the sheriff shut down Brenda's protest. By the time the next HOA meeting came around, the mood had flipped. People were angry, but not at me. They were mad at her. She dragged the whole neighborhood into a fight no one asked for and lost them access to the woods they all thought they'd always have. From what I heard, the meeting was a mess. Brenda tried to shift the blame, but it didn't stick. Even her usual backup, Gary, sat there looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. After that, the letters stopped. The fines disappeared from my account like they'd never existed. No more threats, no more games, just quiet. Something else changed, too. Neighbors who used to avoid me started nodding as they walked by. A couple even stopped to chat. One guy, Mark, I think, said, "Didn't think you'd actually pull it off. But man, respect." I didn't say much, just smiled. The truth was, I hadn't set out to make a statement. I just wanted peace. But in the end, that's exactly what I got, on my own terms. At first, yeah, it felt like revenge. They pushed me, and I pushed back harder. But once the dust settled, I realized it was never just about proving a point. It was about peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't come from arguing with boards or writing letters. It comes from knowing you've drawn a line no one can cross. Owning that forest wasn't about power. It was about taking back control. About not letting someone like Brenda decide how I live my life. Now, the quiet I loved out there, it's mine again. No more fights, no more games, Just trees, trails, and the sound of nothing. In the end, I didn't just win an argument. I made sure I never had to fight that one again. Sometimes, to protect your peace, you have to own the battlefield.